right, everybody. Parents B here with Grow for Greatness. Parents B. Eichler, a.k.a. The Reb. The Reb with the cause, and the cause is you. I don't claim to know everything, but you can talk to me about anything. You can reach me at eichlermedia@gmail.com. Grow for Greatness, where we talk about meaning, value, and purpose. Not because I claim to know everything, but we can talk about anything from a Torah point of view that will hopefully bring us to a higher level of understanding and observance, no matter where we're holding in the spectrum of being a member of Klal Yisrael, being a Jew. So I want to take a look at something today that is very special to me because it begins the book of Shmos, of Exodus, and a commentary, a very special commentary, written by a Rav HaGaon, Rav Chaim Pinchas Scheinberg, Zechatzar Bracha, whom I was fortunate to have a very close relationship. And I want to talk to you today about some of the things he brings down in these parshas, particularly the very first one, having to do with a small investment. Everybody invests in something somewhere along the line, whether you're a large investor or a small investor. The best investment, of course, Torah is the best escalator. So let's take a look at what a small investment can do to bring a person. All right, so let's take a look, and I'd of course welcome your comments as we do all the time at eichlermedia@gmail.com. But first, let's take a look together at what Rabbi Scheinberg talks about. It's a wonderful sefer, by the way, that I believe you can get. If you can't find where to obtain it, let me know at eichlmedia@gmail.com. It's from a series called Nesivas Chaim, the Torah Way of Life, Rav Chaim Pinchas Scheinberg, Zechatzar Bracha, on Chumash. So, Moshe Rabbeinu's first experience of Nevuah prophecy occurred when he encountered the burning bush, the sneh. And it says that V'yar v'hine hasneh be'er be'esh v'hasneh inenu echol or uchal. And he saw, and behold, the bush was ablaze with fire, and the bush was not consumed. Amazingly, the burning bush, as we refer to it in English, was neither burned nor singed. Now, in the very next pasuk, the very next verse, the Torah makes a special point of describing Moshe Rabbeinu's reaction when he saw that bush burning, but not being consumed. And Moshe thought, I will turn aside and look at this great sight. Why the bush is not burned? Now, the Torah makes a very distinct point of teaching us that it was with extra effort and special intent, kavanah, that Moshe Rabbeinu took notice of the amazing vision before his eyes. He wanted to understand fully the importance of the scene before him. Now, just wanting to understand it rather than just saying, wow, isn't that fascinating? Oh, time for lunch. No. Such a sight certainly deserved his attention. However, if we think about it, which I would hope that we would any one of us, you and I, would any of us react? I mean, wouldn't we react in the very same way? I mean, if you were faced with such a wonder, it was right there in front of you, wouldn't you also be amazed and make a special effort to go say, hey, let me take a closer look at that? Such a wondrous sight. It's amazing. Now, people travel far and wide, sometimes spending a fortune to see unusual and striking places or events. A stunningly colorful sunset, magnificent waterfalls, beautiful ocean with coral reefs. The list is endless of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's creations that people travel far and wide to see and experience. So if so then Moshe Rabbeinu's reaction was apparently very normal. Why would that be extraordinary? But nevertheless, the Torah intentionally records Moshe Rabbeinu's reaction and even goes so far as to describe his thoughts. Now, if the Torah goes to such lengths, making an extra effort to describe a apparently typical response, so there must be a reason for it. to teach us a particularly valuable special lesson. Moshe wanted to know why this was happening and what it meant. And that required a deeper, more insightful look, a deep look, gimlet perspicacity. Moshe exerted himself. He was not satisfied simply to just take a glancing gaze at the bush. A superficial sensory impression was not enough to satisfy his desire to understand this wonder. It wasn't a flash in the pan. Wow, isn't that interesting? Let's move on. He wanted to grasp, to fathom its true significance. And so he exerted himself to understand what exactly Hashem wanted to tell him by means of this nace. And his efforts paid off. HaKadosh Baruch Hu valued those efforts. As it says in the Pasuk, it says that Hashem saw that he turned aside to see. Hashem took notice of it, and God called out to him from amid the bush and said, Moshe, Moshe. And he replied, Here I am. Now with this exchange, Moshe Rabbeinu now began his unparalleled, unequaled role in history as Hashem's envoy, his select envoy, to lead Klal Yisrael out of the shibud, the bondage of Mitzrayim. Moshe was to become the master of all Nevi'im, the Navi of all Nevi'im, the sole and exclusive intermediary to receive the Torah for the sake of Klal Yisrael. So Rabbi Scheinberg Zitzal quotes the Seforno, who helps us understand why Hashem valued Moshe's efforts to understand the wonder that was before him. So regarding this verse, the Seforno quotes a Gemara that states an essential principle concerning human endeavor, a basic truth about ruchnius, spiritual matters, and about life in general. In one place, at least in one place, is quoted in Shabbos, and it says, Bo l'tahir Messiahim oso. Somebody who comes to purify himself will be helped. That means that every deed has a basic motivation behind it. And this impetus determines the true nature of all we do. Fascinating concept. Two people can perform the very same act and do the same mitzvah, say the same bracha, but the crucial factor that reveals the essence of what they are doing is their intent, the kavanah behind it and inherent in it. Now, a person can say a bracha, and without it, according to halacha, he really cannot satisfy his thirst, while someone else could say the same bracha to Hashem, and it'll make all the difference because of the kavanah, the intention that he had behind it. One person will say a bracha because without it he can't really satisfy his thirst, according to halacha, as I said. But someone else will say the same bracha to praise Hashem. In other words, he's not making the bracha so he can drink the water, although he has to make it, but he's drinking the water so he'll be able to make the bracha, because that is his way of showing how much he cares about Hashem's mitzvahs. And apparently this is the way Moshe Rabbeinu exerted himself in ruchnius. Extra intent has to have extra effort, and consequently it's going to receive a different reward. Ruchnius, that means spirituality, requires siyata d'shmaya. Don't just think that you need that help when you're making that big business deal. If you are thinking about that, that's certainly a good place to be. But don't think that we don't need it in terms of ruchnius. No, I'll take care of that myself. In order to merit siyata d'shmaya, we have to make that extra effort, because our efforts are the proof. That's the raya l'davar, that we truly value and desire ruchnius, that we really want it. Accordingly, when Hashem saw Moshe troubling himself to think more deeply and to see more precisely, then Moshe was deemed worthy of all the siyata d'shmaya required to fill his unique task in life. I'm thinking about that story I heard about Descartes, the French philosopher who coined the phrase, I think, therefore I am. And he stepped into a tavern in Paris one day, and the barkeep said, Monsieur Descartes, would you like a cognac? He says, no, I think not. Poof, he was gone, according to his own philosophy. I venture to say that as members of Klal Yisrael, thinking Jewish men and women of all ages, that it's not just a matter of I think, therefore I am. I think the mandate would be I am, therefore I think. I'm compelled to think. But as we all know, we live in a society where a lot of the thinking is done for us, and we're so narcotized into the various media that is at our disposal, where we don't have much time to think, although we think we have a lot of time to think, and we think that we're thinking. But the truth is, a lot of people are not even thinking at all. They're just following the herd or doing what comes impulsively or what they've now been coerced into doing by virtue of the society around them. But that's another schmooze. But we all know that thinking, if people thought before they acted, there'd be a lot less crime and a lot less tension in the world in general and individually. So that's a whole other schmooze about just what's required to think. I was working for a corporation once where the CFO told me, what I'd like you to do is a half hour before you really start getting into the details of the business day, I'd like you to just think about things that can help the company, things that you can do personally in terms of your own field that will help somebody or somewhere or some aspect of the company, and write it down and think it out, and then we can talk it over at a meeting. But think, I'd like you to think before it comes. So I said, well, I think right now I'd like to go to lunch and take a nap. But I don't think that's what he had in mind. But thinking is certainly a sine qua non, not only that, but a requisite for being a successful thinking Jew. Extra intent takes extra effort. And by the way, that brings reward with it. So the siyata d'shmaya, the divine assistance that we need for Rukni, is something that Hashem wants to give us. In order to merit siyata d'shmaya, we first have to make that effort, because our extra efforts are the proof that we really want and desire that Rukni is. So Rabbi Scheinberg tells us that accordingly, when Hashem saw Moshe Rabbeinu troubling himself to think more deeply and to see more precisely, then Moshe was deemed worthy of all the siyata d'shmaya required to fulfill his unique life task. And then Rabbi Scheinberg goes on, and I'd like to pick up on that in our next installment. But what I want to leave us with today is the fact that making an effort and wanting that effort to succeed requires siyata d'shmaya, and we get it once Hashem sees that we make that effort. And Moshe Rabbeinu made that effort, and he was about to be chosen as Hashem's messenger to perform miracles and wonders, the likes of which the world had never seen before and has never seen since, till the coming of Mashiach. May that be speedily in our time. But at that time, at that moment in history, his readiness and determination to sacrifice was tested in an apparently very small way. However, this was the culmination of years of preparation. 40 years earlier, Moshe had fled Mitzrayim. He was a convicted criminal sentenced to death, and through an outright miracle he was able to escape. Now, a shepherd for his father-in-law's flocks, Moshe sees this bush blazing in front of him. The time for the Jewish people to be redeemed had come. But now the question was Moshe Rabbeinu ready? Hashem, the all-knowing God, was waiting for a true indication of Moshe Rabbeinu's commitment. That sign was ever so slight. Moshe wanted to see more, and Hashem took note of this and revealed it to us in his Torah HaKadosha. Chazal understood the implications, and so they taught us that through the minor act of taking a few steps forward, or simply turning his neck, something so mundane, so simple that anybody could do it. But he did it, taking those few steps forward, turning his head. Moshe made an extra effort that gained him an unparalleled place in all of history. And Rabbi Scheinberg points out to us, and this is an amazing thing to think about, if the accomplishment of good or evil is beyond our control, certainly the ability to make miracles is even further beyond our reach. However, Hashem will help those who have faith that everything is subject to the will of our Creator, and those who make the maximum effort to achieve that. And through those efforts, one will receive, as Moshe Rabbeinu did, siyata d'shmaya. We cannot be Moshe Rabbeinu in terms of prophecy. But in terms of making effort and achieving greatness, that we can be like Moshe Rabbeinu. All we have to do is take those steps forward, turn around, and look. And with Hashem's help, we'll receive that siyata d'shmaya to be all that we can be, the very best that we can be. For the moment, this is Peretz B saying, be all you can be. Thanks for joining me here on Grow for Greatness.